Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my channel. We are still on the state of Nigeria and its place in the Committee of Nations. Over the last couple of days, I've listened to a number of speeches coming out from the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. Interestingly, this is one event I've followed for the past 25 years, since the early 2000s. And I've listened to speeches upon speeches upon speeches. And what I have seen in the trend I have seen, especially about African leaders, is the demand for recognition. Again and again, we are demanding for a place in a skilled global multicultural and multilateral structure. And rightly so, we have a right to demand. But let's take a listen to the Prime Minister of Belgium. And how a singular statement reminded someone like me of the mindset of Western civilization. I am not caught aback by that kind of statement. He said, and I quote, "Then I truly believed that the Western world was bound together by shared values and mutual respect. And I also believed that these values will eventually rule the entire world." End of quote. So when we read that kind of statement, we understand it. For someone like me, who have taken time to study Samuel Otetin's The Clash of Civilization and Remaking of the World Order, I come to an understanding that you have to earn your place. And when you earn your place, it is easy to universalize your ideas, to make your ideas the ideal. But an idea or an ideology or a culture, a value that has not been systematized is a lot more difficult to universalize. Even though I agree that some of these values we talked about are for political correctness and sometimes elusive. And a lot of times Africa find itself in that cage where we are caught between hypocrisy of global powers and also struggling to model our unity ourselves. Where is Africa in these things? And one of the things that I've identified is that African leaders seem not to know exactly where the problem is. And that the problem is not about belonging to the permanent, to belonging to or having a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council, or even being a member of the United States Nations to start with. There are fundamental problems. I do not begrudge the conceptual and theoretical framework that undermines such a mindset. Because when we talk about the word international, most of the times Nigeria or Africa generally, some part of South Asia, some part of Asia, part of South America are not reckoned with. So, but when we ask for a place in international politics, it is not by fiat. We have to work it. And how do we work it? We have to go back home. The fundamental problem, which is not, again, I repeat, about belonging to United Nations or belonging to any of these Bretton Woods institutions. Let us come back home and reflect on exactly how we are dealing with ourselves as a continent. I've listened to Madman of Ghana. I've listened to Ruto of Kenya. I've listened to Kasim Shettima, the Vice President of Nigeria. It's the same whole story since the 2000s. It's the same demand. But back home, Nigeria is battling ethnic battles. It's not able to even unite the various ethnic groups. It's not able to earn patriotism of its citizens. So where exactly do we want to place ourselves in the Committee of Nations if at this stage all we're doing is unanimous rhetoric? without delivering on united front, unanimous front. Africa has to be united. We must build genuine unity from within. European Union is one of the strongest institutions in the entire world. Think about AU, African Union. It's one of the weakest institutions you can ever imagine. Look at bilateral relations between the UK and EU. Look at the funding that comes from EU to places like Hungary, to places like Estonia. These are countries that do not have the economic powers like Nigeria, for example, like Kenya. But when you have a strong regional economic bodies like the EU, like the Asian, like the RCEP, like the APEC, you will have strong regional alliance, free trade agreements, free trade zones, less restrictive visa policies. Now you are from Belgium, now you can walk into the UK and work. Ghana and Nigeria are still fighting over Nigerians coming to Ghana to work. South Africa is still, there's still a lot of xenophobic attacks in South Africa. If we don't address the fundamental problem of exactly how do we want to relate. Now to travel from Nigeria to South Africa now, you have to obtain visa. And the conditions are very stringent. I understand African deserves a rightful seat at the table. There's no doubt. We've been part of these institutions since emergence in 1945, shortly after the Civil War, after the Second World War. But we always sound rhetoric, echoing in the same chambers without any result if we don't address the fundamental problem. The United Nations General Assembly, this problem is not just global. There are internal issues we have to confront ourselves. If we are a people who cannot galvanize citizenship, we cannot galvanize the interest of citizens, we cannot galvanize patriotism. We are still battling ethnic issues, tribal issues here and there. And so we're asking for, you have to set your house in order. African leaders must realize this, and we should stop embarrassing ourselves in the name of making requests. What is the relationship, the bilateral relationship between Kenya and Nigeria? What kind of economic relationship, trade relationship is between South Africa and Nigeria? I can drive from London to Paris, drive from London to Warsaw in Poland. Can I drive from Nigeria to South Africa, to Kenya, to Uganda, to Rwanda, to Ghana, to Congo doctor? So there has to be continental framework, economic framework, trade framework that will allow the South African man to move into Kenya in the East Africa without any form of intimidation. There has to be free trade zones. There has to be trade relations that are very strong. Building each of these regional institutions like the African Union to make it a very strong economic hub that will be dispensing and helping nations that are struggling. But if the AU itself is not strong, how do you want to help? The man who wants to gives out clothes, you have to look at exactly what he's wearing. So I encourage our leaders from Africa to begin to have some introspection, to be circumspect. And this is how we move forward. Thank you. And I'll post